Okay, thank you everyone. So I'm Nhung from Vietnam. I thank you very much for your attending the workshop, the session today with WF Vietnam and also with our partner. And I think our event on the scaling the climate finance for nature-based solution in Vietnam and how we can foster the collaboration and innovation in the country. So we expect that in our section we can increase the awareness raising on the importance of investment on NBS. Also, how we can explore the more activity opportunity for investment in the country, and also highlight different case study in the country. Also important in how we can facilitate between the private sector and public sector in this area. So to start with the session, I would like to invite Mr. Nguyễn Giang Thu, is the Deputy Director General from Department of Science and Technology and Environment from Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development from Vietnam. We give some opening speech. So, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Nhung. Ladies and gentlemen, um, please forgive me. I have to read it to make it exactly what I want. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Miss Damien Fleming, Deputy Lead of WWF Global Forest Practice. Miss Phạm Thị Cẩm Nhung, Climate and Energy Practice Lead WWF Vietnam. Miss Imenda Baduko, Climate Finance and Engagement Specialist, Food Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues and friends, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to this important event, Scaling Up Climate Finance for Nature-Based Solution in Vietnam, Fostering Collaboration and Innovation. As you know, Vietnam is at the forefront of the global climate crisis, ranking 13th among the most vulnerable countries to climate change. The impacts of rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and biodiversity loss pose significant stress not only to our environment, but also to our socio-economic stability. These challenges demand immediate and transformative actions, and this is where nature-based solutions, NBS, come into play. Nature-based solutions represent a powerful tool in our collective fight against climate change. They provide an integrated approach to addressing climate impacts by leveraging the inherent strength of ecosystems. By restoring mangroves, reforesting degraded lands, or improving sustainable farming practices, we not only mitigate climate risk, but also bring numerous co-benefits, enhancing biodiversity, improving livelihoods, and fostering sustainable development. However, scaling up these solutions demands robust financial frameworks and innovative funding mechanisms. Recent studies highlight the need for global investment in NBS to reach US dollar 674 billion annually by 2050 to meet our climate and biodiversity goals. For Vietnam, assessing climate finance is not merely an option, it is necessary. This event provides a platform for dialogue, knowledge sharing, and most importantly, collaborations. Today, we bring together government agencies, international partners, and NGOs to share successful case studies, explore innovative financial solutions, build strategic partnership, and create actionable recommendations that will strengthen climate finance for NBS in Vietnam. Through innovation and collaboration, we can drive forward solutions that will ensure a sustainable future for the present and next generation. Thank you once again for organizing such an important event, and I look forward to the fruitful discussion ahead. Thank you again.
So thank you very much, Ms. Tu, for giving some note of opening speech. So I would like to go to the session of the presentation now. So we will have a two presentation and then we have a panelist discussion. So I think we will have a one presentation from Vietnam. I will present on behalf also because I think from that Vietnam, only I joined the COP 29 this year. So yeah, I'm happy to share some, I think, information from what is the NBS in the country and what is our strategy and also solution for the NBS scale up in the country. So the first, I think, yeah, here's a picture from Cà Mau province where we have implemented, I think, two different solution on NBS. So one we call here is on the photo, you can see the mangrove shrimp model. So where one way we increase the productivity of the shrimp, but in another hand, we also enhance the conservation of the mangrove. And so enrich forest, the mangrove forest in the region. So maybe next slide, I have to do that. Sorry. Okay. So I think here's some picture. You can see the different area of Vietnam. I think it's a good area for the nature-based solution application implementation in the country. So in the northern, we have a northern area where we see the circle, the orange circle on the in the northern. And central Vietnam is the center. We call the central highland and central Annamai. It also is a circle. The red circle is where we think is a nature-based solution can be application and also scale up. And also the Mekong Delta, also one of most of important landscape in Vietnam, where we have about 20 million people living in the area and provide, I think, a lot of rice product in the country. So not only rice but aquaculture and I think different product of Vietnam. So what is the advantage and barrier of NBS implementation in the country? So for advantage of Vietnam, I think ranking on the 16th among the country with a high or rich biodiversity and ecosystem. So we do have also the different ecosystem from the highland to the sea. We have a forest, also the wetland area and the freshwater area. So it's a different kind of ecosystem. We support also for different kind of nature-based solution. Another advantage is the traditional ecological knowledge. So the knowledge of the local people and so support us to have a better nature-based solution in Vietnam and also integrate the knowledge into the nature-based solution of the country. Another advantage we think is after Sharm el Sheikh COP27. I think NBS already recognized and integrated in different policy in the country. I think including the NDC and also from we call the National Climate Change Strategy and also in the National Adaptation Plan. So that is, I think, three advantage how we can work on the nature-based solution. I think three different barriers in the country is the first, how we can balance between the social and economic consideration. So of course, we want to do more the nature-based solution, but how we can balance it? Another, I think, the challenge is the climate change risk and uncertainty. We impact a lot on our nature-based solution in the country. And then the last one, of course, we still see is a lot of limitation for the finance in the NBS implementation. And here's some example, general, in Vietnam. And we also have a different kind of nature-based solution from the north to the south. And also here you can see from the river banks solution and also agriculture. We have the nature ecosystem restoration and also urban NBS also is across country. So what is the WF strategy? So in our current strategy, is a coming strategy, the coming strategy from 2025 to 2030. So we want to restore the ecosystem structure, biodiversity, natural assets, while also having the ecological footprint to ensure the climate resilience and also support the sustainable economic development. And of course, we want to contribute to the conservation goal of the Greater Mekong region. So we emphasize for three landscape in Vietnam. So we work in the Mekong Delta, we work in the Central Annamite, and also we put is the marine, the landscape, is a seascape, is one of the priority for Vietnam. And nature-based solution, we harness the power of nature, and also we address the major social issues in country. So that we put in our strategy as a priority. So we do have a current ongoing project and program in country to work on the NBS. In Central Annamite, we do have, I think, in the Central Annamite and Mekong Delta, in marine area, we don't have a specific. We are going to implement some nature-based solution for the marine area, but it's a very starting now. And here's the ongoing, I think, project and program we implement in the region. So the first one, we do have the business model in FSC, Acacia Plantation, and also Vietnamese Ngọc Linh I think Chen in the Quảng Nam province. It's one of the province in the central Vietnam. I think another model is a forest coffee model, connect to the natural reserves of Bắc Hương Hóa, also one province in the central Nam Ai. And also another project we call the landscape restoration and better management, and how we can increase the forest, the carbon stock, and contribute to the NDC of Vietnam. Here's in Mekong Delta, we also have an ongoing project, and we work in the different wetland area, like Cham Chim National Park and Lang Sen wetland area. And we also working in different national parks, is Mũi Cà Mau, U Minh Thượng, and Trà Sư. So different habitats restoration model. I think the next nature-based solution is how we can do the sustainable and climate resilient food production. So we have a different model on livelihood production. I think shrimp mangrove model, rice shrimp model, and also another flood, we call the flood-based typology, like a flooding rice model. Another, I think, activity is a community initiative, and how we can enhance the livelihood and also the climate resilience of the people, using like also the tradition, also the ecotourism, by using the, I think, to enhance the ecotourism in the area. So what is the way forward of WWF Vietnam on nature-based solution? So we have a different platform, and one of that is we call the nature-based solution origination platform. And this one is we connect, I think we create, this one I think run in the Central Annamite. So this is a platform, I think maybe our colleagues will talk later. But I think the idea is how we can have the landscape views on the nature-based solution and mobilize the funding from private and public sector. To also different the program in the Central Annamite. So this, I think, is one of the platform we create different program at the landscape level, and also to connect with the financer from private and public sector. Another platform we develop now is we call the NBS Accelerator. This one run in Mekong Delta, and this one also is like a platform. We do have a different, I think, we put a different program and build together the program with a different, I think, criteria to how to can scale up the nature-based solution program in the Mekong Delta. I think this is a program now currently funded by SSBC through WWF UK, and I think the previous ones, this one, I think we are getting the support from WWF Denmark and WWF US, and also different WWF network on the program. So what is maybe some recommendation I put here for maybe further discussion with you later. But what is the recommendation for scale up the climate finance for nature-based solution? So first, I think it's a regulation is one important, and incentive for that is a very important for private sector to put the investment on the nature-based solution. And the next one is how about the carbon market, and also the benefit sharing to different stakeholders involved in the nature-based solution implementation. I think the next one is NBS should be integrated as, I think, business model at the landscape level. So we now look at the different landscape level. So we don't want to have a project by project, but we want to have the landscape view on the nature-based solution implementation. And also the last one, how the scale up availability on the concession loan finance for the for the implementer of the nature-based solution. So okay, thank you for listening. Okay. So I thank you, and I hand over to Damien for his presentation.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Very good. What do I press? Okay. Well, just while I'm doing, just want to thank you, Ms. Tu and Nhung, for inviting me here and for great opening words, and Nhung for giving us insight into your beautiful country. So I joined WWF 15 years ago, pretty much to the day, and when I joined, nature-based solutions certainly weren't really being talked about. Maybe they were in some circles, but this is definitely one of the big trends over the last decade or so that I've been with WWF, and I want to talk a little bit, I want to zoom out a little bit from the focus on Vietnam and talk a bit about nature-based solutions more globally and some of the trends in terms of nature-based solutions and in terms of finance, and build on some of the points that were made by Ms. Tu and Nhung. Oops. So why have nature-based solutions why this trend towards nature-based solutions over the last 10 years or so? Well, I'd say that there are three things here. First, and we've touched on already, is the recognition that the climate crisis, nature crisis, and the inequality, social development crisis need to be tackled holistically in an integrated manner. We can see that greenhouse gas emissions, unfortunately, are still rising. The Living Planet report, which WWF released last month, told us of a 73% decline in average wildlife populations in my lifetime. And we're also increasing recognition of the role of nature as a climate solution, also as a solution to human well-being. We know that a third of the mitigation potential in order to close the emissions gap will come from nature. We also know that nature is responsible for over 50% of global GDP. Second is increased recognition of inclusive approaches and rights-based approaches, and it's fundamental that nature-based solutions must incorporate human rights and land tenure as central to their projects. And then finally, finance. I mean, finance was the central topic of the Global Biodiversity Framework in Cali, and is obviously the main topic here in Baku. We have a huge finance gap, a huge nature finance gap, 4.1 trillion. And most of the funding at the moment is coming from public sector, which we know is declining. But also there's a huge opportunity, and I think people are increasingly seeing the opportunity that a transition towards a nature-positive economy can create nearly 400 million jobs, tens of trillions of business opportunities, and also can avert 2.7 trillion in nature losses. So I think that opportunity is where we really want to focus. Now, where is the finance at the moment? It's about 200 billion according to UNEP's State of Finance report in 2022. Might sound like quite a lot of money, but actually it's at least only a third of what's needed, and that's the absolute floor, I think. And at the moment, most of that is coming from public finance. Okay, so around 82% of nature-based solutions finance flows in 2022 were from public finance, and we know those are declining. Only 35 billion coming from public sector, from private sector. That's pretty modest. So as I said, 200 billion sounds like quite a lot of money, right? But actually, if you look at what we call grey finance or harmful finance flows, almost 7 trillion of finance flowing towards activities that could be harmful towards nature, towards climate, and towards people. So that 200 billion is dwarfed in comparison. And so we need to increase the flows of finance, green finance towards nature-based solutions, but we also need to tackle the harmful subsidies. Otherwise, we're basically flowing against a very powerful tide. So by redirecting a small amount of those negative finance flows, we can create that increase in nature-based solutions that we need, and we can stop those harmful finance flows towards nature. Some of these have already been touched on, but what are the barriers towards scaling nature-based solutions? Well, I think a really key point here is it's not just about increasing finance, right? Finance is not a proxy for impact. We need to increase finance, but we also need to increase our impact. And so some of the things that are real challenges that we need to address, one of those, we have a very weak pipeline. So we have demand, but we often don't have a strong pipeline of nature-based solutions, high-quality ones, that are at the necessary scale of what's needed. So we have low volumes, we have very small ticket sizes often, and we have many nature-based solutions that just aren't economically viable and attractive to private sector investments. Talking about scale, why is scale so important? Well, scale is important because we're facing a huge crisis. We can no longer, we're not going to get there with lots of small projects, right? But it's also really important because of our impact. If we have siloed projects that don't focus on addressing some of the drivers of biodiversity and nature loss, then we're not going to have the impact that we need. So we need to be addressing, as we say here, some of the conflicting policy frameworks. We need to be looking at government capacity. We need to be addressing some of those harmful subsidies that I said before. And many of these things will come from outside of the project area that we're working. We also have credibility issues of existing nature-based solutions. So we have, and if you looked at the slide previously, it looked at private flows. Many of the private finance flows at the moment are coming from biodiversity offsets and carbon offsets. And those have caused a number of credibility issues. So we need to be really ensuring that we have solutions that are climate, nature, and people positive, and particularly that, as it says here, that we need to be really working on rights recognition and have deep and meaningful engagement with local communities to address some of those credibility issues that have beset carbon finance to date. And then quickly onto solutions. What's WWF doing in this space? And again, you heard a bit about that already from Nyung. So again, in order to really scale and deliver on the rising demand and interest, first we need to talk more in the language of the private sector and understand a little bit about what they need. So one of the things that we're hearing from investors is they need stronger guidance, more simple guidance. They need clear methodologies and standard metrics that really talk to them. And so there's much more work there to be done in terms of metrics and methodologies. We also need to increase the pipeline, as I said before. So we need to increase the supply of high quality projects and show what good looks like. And I think from Nung we see examples of what a really good, solid NBS project can look like. We need to scale those. We also need investment at a real landscape scale. So we need projects that can deliver on, have a solid design, have strong, full engagement of local communities, and have really strong MRV systems, monitoring and metrics. And finally, we need engagement with governments. Again, in order to really work on making sure that we have the right enabling conditions and enabling policies around those. And some of the solutions, you heard a couple of those already. So, I mean, one of the other key messages here, right, is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. A lot of this stuff is very context-specific, and we need innovation. So some of the things that WWF is involved in, and we need partnerships. We can't do this stuff alone. So some of the things that WWF is invested in, so Forest Forward is our corporate engagement platform in WWF for forests. We're working with over 30 companies, both on making sure that they reduce their footprint, which is really important, so they're doing no harm, but also they increase their investments in nature-based solutions in critical landscapes. An example there being a partnership we have with SIG, the global packaging company, where we have been working with them on some very ambitious targets around forests and on climate, but also they're investing in places like Mexican central, the central Mexican forests, in forest restoration and in better forest management. You heard already about the MBES origination platform from Nyung, where we're working in Vietnam, but also working in 5 other landscapes across the globe, both at looking at developing landscape projects at a large scale, and as Jung said, really increasing a diversified portfolio of high quality and high integrity investments. The MBS Accelerator, Jung also touched on, this is really focusing on bankable projects, so recognizing the need to scale private investment. We really need to have projects that have really, really sound economic business cases, and so it's been working with partners like HSBC to make sure that we've invested in that pre-feasibility and economic feasibility stages to really attract private investment. An example there being working in the Philippines on sustainable seaweed farming, where in marine protected areas in northeast Palawan, we have a project there that really provides sustainable jobs and benefit to local economy, but also very much in keeping with the goals of the marine protected areas in the Philippines. And then finally, the Trillion Tree is Forest Restoration Catalyst. Close by saying that forests, I think, are pretty unique in being able to, multiple benefits is something I talked about earlier. They're pretty unique in being able to deliver on climate mitigation, on climate adaptation, and deliver livelihoods and benefits to local communities. And so the Trillion Trees Restoration Catalyst is really focused on landscape scale restoration projects with that lens on MBS. So I'm very happy to talk at length a bit more about these in the panel session, but I will hand over now on that one.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Damien, for giving us an overview on the nature-based solution and how the investment situation now. So now I think we go to the panelist discussion. So I would like to invite I think 3 panelists. Please go to the stage. I think first, I think with Mr. Zhang Tu from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. I think the second one is Mr. Damien Fleming, who just gave us the presentation on the global view. And also, I would like to introduce Miss Medela Bakudo. We call her in short is Dada, her nickname. So Dada, so she's a climate finance and engagement specialist from Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. So from FAO. So we would like to you all to the stage and we can have an interaction with the participant. Thank you. Okay, you can see. Chị Thu ngồi đâu hay là ngồi bên đấy? Ngồi đây cho nó ngồi đây. Em ngồi, em đủ ghế, đủ ghế. Em nghĩ là em cần một cái tai nghe. Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you for joining for the panelists. So maybe I think we only have only one business. Okay, so I will hand over to you when you answer the question. Or I think maybe I would like to see maybe the first the lady who Dada you haven't say about. So the first question maybe for Dada about the from as you experience a lot of working on the food system and agriculture with the FAO. So what is a successful approach have your organization taken to mobilize the finance for MBS? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Nung and WWF for this kind invitation. To answer your question, I wanted to start by sharing how actually I fell in love with Vietnam. So it wasn't during me as a backpacker, but it was when I started working for ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And actually, Thailand wanted to understand different resilient methods of production for major crops that we love to eat in the region, which would be rice, maize, and cassava. So we were looking for resilient practices existing within the region to produce these major crops. And one of the things is that I remember a Philippine representative who said, "Oh, we all do everything there. We know everything there. But what I wanted to understand is really rice shrimp farming." So with this, with your presentation, Nung, I wanted to mention that this is really something that Vietnam leads, even within the region, but I think globally. And it's a great example of nature-based solutions. And since we are on a climate conference, I wanted to draw some parallelism between nature-based solutions and climate-smart agriculture. Because when we established the ASEAN Climate Resilience Network, which is a knowledge exchange platform created by the 10 member states of ASEAN, of which Vietnam is one of the founding members, we looked at all these agriculture production practices that promotes resilience, explores mitigation potential, and elevates farmers' income. So there's a lot of parallelism between nature-based solutions and climate-smart agriculture, right? And for climate smart agriculture, because I'm also co-chair of the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, there's a lot of practices that I see is so compatible and can even be called nature-based solutions. And as an expert or practitioner in this field, I often say my approach is very much brand agnostic. Like you can call whatever it is, as long as we arrive at the same goal. Um, there's even within agriculture, there's family farming, agroecology, nature-based solution, climate-smart agriculture. I think each of these approaches really have something to contribute towards all the general goals, the reason why we're here, which is the global climate pledges. So I think some of the practices that I've seen that's really um, nature-based solutions in nature would be regenerative agriculture, cover cropping of a lot of crops that produces income at the same time protects soil, integrated pest management. These are examples of nature-based solutions. But when we're asking about financing for nature-based solutions. Yesterday, I attended a meeting where the World Bank shared that in order to support the transformation of our agriculture food system, it's going to take $650 billion. And at this point, we may say, no, no, it's not, it doesn't exist anywhere. But actually, double that amount is spent on agriculture subsidies, right? So we are looking at if we just repurpose some of the subsidies, we both do a nature-based approach in which we lessen fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, we lessen nitrous oxide into the air. At the same time, we repurpose and do some climate action. And I don't know if this is my only question, so I'm gonna say everything now in my notes. Is this my last question or there's another? Okay, then I saved some. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, interesting information. Yeah. So thank you, Dada. You give very huge information and interesting for us to follow up. So okay, following with Dada's bring the information, some example from Indonesia, similar like you mentioned about the stream rise, the model, how we can scale up. So from your expertise and also like the management authority of Vietnam for both, I think agriculture, food, and also forestry. So, what is the opportunity and challenge for Vietnam to apply or scale up the model, such model in country? And also, how you think, yeah, what is maybe the solution to overcome some challenge?
Thank you very much, Nhung, for your question. I think that many of my answer already mentioned in Dada and some in Damien and Nhung also already mentioned. We have opportunities for nature-based solutions, that we have comprehensive policies and all of them touching some part of the nature-based solution, not exactly the definition, but we touching some part of that. So if we can list all the policy, I think that we have quite a lot. But the problem, the challenge is the implementation and the enforcement and also the financing. So another opportunity for us is also, we talk about nature-based solution is Damien mentioned this is about 10 or decades trend, something. But actually, our great grandparents already did that long time ago. Because at that time, we said that we have to look for the weather, we have to wait for the soil to dry or something like before we start the new crop. As I still remember, and there is still in our sayings about agriculture. So long time ago that we did that, but for some decades we focus on raising the production, and so we forgot about what our great grandparent already did. So now Vietnam, we also implement some kind of nature-based solution, as already mentioned in Nhung presentation, and also Dada talk about rice stream. And we also invest some, already invest some investment on some kind of circular economy, some kind of in agriculture, and some part like we like a dry and wet alternate in rice production, and some we call it to save some chemical fertilizer, and using more organic fertilizer, and using the some from livestock waste into some organic fertilizer for the rice, something like that. So that is our opportunities, but challenges are, I think is we similar to the region, and also the challenge that we have a policy there, but we don't have a specific. As Damien mentioned, we have to some kind of specific models, and it should be varieties, the diverse model to meet the needs of the different level of the agricultural production. So, and also we have policy, but we need also the technical guidelines and standards, and something to promote the people to use the products from the nature-based solution production. And also, as Damien mentioned, we also have to think that how can the nature-based solution in agriculture can bring profit economically for the farmers. Otherwise, we will fail because they have to survive. And what I'm very interested in Damien's presentation is he talked about the indigenous and involvement of the local people in nature-based solution, because they are the one who live with the environment and very close to all the natural resources. So they are the one who will protect the natural resources. So is also our challenge. You have to involve them in our model and our campaign to apply nature-based solution. And the other thing is also that how to balance between production and environment. That is also the issue. So I think that quite a lot of challenges.
Okay, thank you. So it's come direct to Damien. So I think Miss Tu, when speaker talk about a lot about how we have a standardized or some guideline on the nature base, and also, so from your side, so maybe Diamond, you can share about maybe lesson learned from another country, and Vietnam can learn, and also can scale up our nature-based solution.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think such great points that both of you made. Well, I think just to re-emphasize a couple of those. One is the piece around engagement of local communities. It's fundamental. Obviously, it's the right thing to do, but also, one of the things that you learn when you work in conservation is that impact takes time. 10, 15 years is kind of the minimum amount of time to really realize impact in projects. And therefore, you need to have long sustainable funding, but also you really need to have the engagement of local communities and indigenous peoples and those in the project area, so that they are incentivized, they feel ownership of that work. Otherwise, you're not going to have long-term sustainability. I think that's absolutely crucial. So yes, we need to find more finance, but we need to find long-term finance, and we need to have very strong engagement of local actors. I also, recognize that nature-based solutions covers all sorts of different areas, but I think both of you have spoken about the importance of agriculture and the food system, and I'm sure it's something we'll hear a lot about this week and next week, and also at the UNCCD, which is the next of the conferences that happens. We're also facing a soil health crisis. We know that the food system is the system that's most damaging to nature, and particularly forests where I'm from. So I think, looking at nature-based solutions that help to transition agriculture to more sustainable systems, including things like agroforestry, different livestock systems is fundamental, and really support that. Of course, we also need nature-based solutions that invest in our forested landscapes as well. And it was great that Nung, you shared some of that work in the central Annamites. I mean, there are great examples happening all around the world. As you said, this is not new. Maybe I can talk a little bit about another one of the examples that we're working with is Velux company, and they're investing in nature-based solutions in a number of different geographies, places like Madagascar, I think in Vietnam as well. And what I really like about the work they're doing is that they have a 20-year partnership in investment in their projects, recognizing that we really need this long-term investment in sustainable forest management in places like in Madagascar, with very, very strong engagement of local communities from the outset. So, I think that's a model we need much more of. And again, that's also very much in partnership with local governments, again, to provide those critical enabling conditions.
Thank you. So from your sharing on that, so maybe I come to the same question for three of you about. I think the first, how do you think, what is the solution or what is strategy to scale up the nature-based solution and to get more the investment from international and domestic as well for nature-based solution in country? And how do you think, I think Damien mentioned about the local government also, so how do you think the collaboration between the public sector, private sector, government, the central government, local government, private sector or other civil society also, community? Okay, thank you. So you, Damien?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's very interesting you mentioned the role of community, right? And I've always been a fan of payments for ecosystem services because then really farmers on the ground are doing climate action and they haven't been compensated. So we're talking a lot of climate finance available from GCF, Adaptation Fund, Jeff, everywhere. But the simple payments for ecosystem services, which we have been talking about since decades ago, right? It hasn't really taken off. And we needed to scale this up. There's an example I work with on watershed management, in which the farmers are actually taking care of the watershed, and there's a water company that benefits from distilling, filtering, and supplying. It's a private company. So it's an example of, I remember getting the data from the company. They wouldn't reveal their data. So we went out to have a drink with the manager, and we managed to get a calculation of their profit. And we presented to say, can we get 3%, 4% of your profit for environmental management? And they actually agreed. So I think these kind of examples, we should keep looking more at it and scaling it up. I think we need to be more proactive with governments approaching private sector and really saying, look, starting a relationship and say, we understand you have this much profit, but the farmers are also doing their part in keeping it clean and keeping it there. What do you think about a 2%, 3% fund? So there's these low-hanging fruits that we can pick on. Farmers are also doing their bit in soil management, especially on organic farmers and non-tillage farming. So this is really something, they need to be compensated for this, and these are nature-based solutions. We're very much excitedly working also with Vietnam on the potential of rice green bonds. So we hope that these some sort of examples on this on blended finance. And I would say we really need to look at philanthropic sources. I worked at COP28 last year as their senior advisor for the food system group partnership, and we really tapped into partnerships. The Gates Foundation has been very much active in looking at innovation that promotes nature-based solutions, climate-smart agriculture, and I think blending this with public-private investments would work well. So we really need to be proactive in this, get governments to also, and I think in the ASEAN region, Vietnam is leading this in really being proactive. The government has a concrete plan and they have really mapped out the sources of overseas funding, but they're also very active in looking at opportunities from carbon markets. I think what's missing now is payments for ecosystem services and exploration of philanthropic support. Over.
Yeah, really, really great points. I think again, just to commend the really great work that's going on already in Vietnam. Both from the government. WWF Vietnam is an incredible office. We're very lucky to have them, within our WWF network, and there's a huge amount to learn from here. I think, just to re-emphasize the scale point, really starting with not what the donor wants or the funding opportunity, but to really think deeply about what's needed in that landscape in order to, move towards a more nature positive landscape, and to put a financing plan, have a really strong conservation plan in that landscape that's built with multiple actors, and then to understand what the suitable financing sources that can enable us to move towards the conservation objectives of that landscape. And that's really what the Nature-Based Solutions Origination Platform is doing, and that's investing in places like the Central Annamites, really taking a broad look at what's needed, what the funding sources are. Some of that will be grant-based finance, some of that will be private finance, bankable solutions, some of it may well be blended, but really understanding first what the conservation objectives are, and then trying to bring in different amounts of finance. Another really key thing here, we understood about this weak pipeline. We really need more investment up front in really, doing that understanding of what the conservation needs are, what the financing opportunities are, increasing, technical assistance, capacity building, really making sure there's proper consultation in those landscapes. This takes money to do that. So, we do need investment from, philanthropy and public sources in order to really crowd in meaningfully that private finance. And as we said before, we really need to be working with governments to support the enabling conditions in place. But I think there's some really good seeds and work going on in Vietnam, and we're very excited to be working with you all to help bear the fruits of those.
I think so, from the point of the government, from Ministry of Agriculture, I think that it's very important that we scale up all the, already we have a model, but now we have to cope with the challenges. So I think the important thing is first we have to make those practice from the nature-based solution should be viable economically. So maybe I think that we have some kind of green labeling for the product produced from that nature-based solution, or some kind of system of certification. So you make the profit for the farmers, and also we make that we add the value to the product, the green value to the product. So those are the important things I think we should do. The other thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, we don't have all the already available model for the all kind of diverse practices in agriculture. So we have to introduce like a data set is about innovation, some kind of new model, some kind of new practices. So we do need investment in that, and also we need the investment in the system where we forecast and monitoring the natures, so we can help the farmer with that. We can provide them the more exact, more precise information for them to work with the nature, to follow the nature, to have the best production. And I think that we think this is now we need. So we have to prioritize. Depends on the resources. We have to prioritize which one we will do first. Yeah.
Maybe to may explore more also during the investment, how the plan from Vietnam to collaborate with a different partner. I think from different ministry and different authority from the central government to the local government on, and also international partner to promote the nature-based solution in country. Yeah.
I think that Damien and Dada also mentioned about the is important thing that we have to create some kind of partnership. That is very important. We have to partner. We have to mobilize all the involvement of all the stakeholder in the value chains of the agricultural product. They have to be actively involved in the nature-based solution. So we do hope that we can collaborate with an international organization, technical expertise, and we work with the community, especially the local people, to scale up the nature-based solution. That is our expectation, and Vietnam is very welcome on the helpful hand with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. So maybe I give floor for the participant if you want to have some interaction with the speaker or the panelist, on panelists.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the very interesting and very informative sharing from different point of view. So I am Hup. I'm the executive director of the Center for Sustainable Rural Development from Vietnam, and we work, of course, as a local NGOs. We work very much on the ground to support peoples. So like you said, that the role of local communities and the role of local peoples. So my question is, I think private sectors is really important to scale up. And can you share of your experience how you can draw the attentions and make them work for the peoples and for the NBS? Because private sector, they really care about the profit. And sometimes nature-based solution is more expensive and less benefit. So how can we mobilize them in the cost of NBS financings? Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very good question. And I wanted to approach it in a different, turn it around. Because you asked about private sector, and I wanted to say that we must remember that the farmers on the ground comprise the biggest private sector. So when we look at them not as beneficiary of grants, but as investors, we must understand that they are very concerned about profit as well. So profitability is a key aspect. So that means that they are a stakeholder or a member of a grassroots company, no, or their businessman in that sense. And so when we look at it that way, we formulate a business model that looks at them as that they're very caring for their income as well. One of the example I wanted to go back is Miss you mentioned origination. I'm very much a fan of geographical indication. So this is very much like, for example, how champagne was protected because it originated from one area. And I know that in Southeast Asia, especially Cambodia and Vietnam, we are starting to do this, especially with the products that we have, like cashew and pepper. Cambodia did a very good job of protecting their product through geographical indication. So I would suggest you're asking for, when we look at farmers as part of a capitalist or as investor themselves, let's start with working on projects on geographical indication, protecting Vietnamese cashew, which is very, very much in demand, especially with the diet shift that's happening in Europe. We're getting cashew butter, etc. This is a form of protection for farmers, while at the same time really protecting your product and your geographical location as your capital. So I think that this is one way, and especially when you look at cashew, it's a deforestation-free product. So I think I geek out on this, and I'm excited if we could actually have geographical indication, put a label on Vietnamese cashew.
But can you
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great question, and I tried to allude to that, I think, on my very first slide, which is that a transition to a nature positive economy can have huge positive impacts on business. I mean, we know that over half of the global GDP is dependent on nature. If you look at the World Economic Forum's top 5 global risks, it's about nature, it's about climate change. So I think there's an imperative for companies to invest and a huge opportunity, I think, as you've highlighted. And if you look at countries like Brazil now, they're really starting to seize, and we hear Marina Silva talking about the bioeconomy and how that's going to be a fundamental driver of Brazil's future and Brazil's future economy. So I think, you know, investing in these kind of nature-based solutions and supply chains can really be a win-win, you know, for local communities, but also for the companies further up the supply chain, because they're obviously very nervous about business risk, reputational risk, but also to contribute towards, you know, national and regional economies. So I think it's a huge opportunity space.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I think Miss Tu want to give some sentence, but maybe we have no time now. Dan already mentioned. Sorry. So thank you very much. I think one message from Miss Tu that OCOP is also one product from the private sector in Vietnam, which promote also the, I think, green label, different products from the nature-based solution. Yeah. So. Thank you for all the panelists for your time and also very thoughtful information from I think, different area on nature-based solution. And also thank you for being with Vietnam. And we look forward to closely work with you for in the future on promote the nature-based solution, scale it up, and also how we can, have a very more, I think, maybe the finance and initiatives on nature-based solution in the country. Also, thank you for the participant for being with us today. Thank you. Yeah. Have a good day.